Welcome to the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP, TRAP. Please follow us and join in the conversation on Twitter @Advisor Podcast, where you can suggest ideas and themes you'd like the TRAP team to discuss. Also remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a 6 out of 5-star review on iTunes. Doing all this really helps us, which means we can do more to help you. Now let's head over to the studio for the latest pile of TRAP.
Yes, indeed, dear Trappists. Welcome back to what many people are calling episode 59 of the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP TRAP. My name is officially Declan King, and joining me, as ever, in the digital studio of doom are the three other horsemen of the apocalypse! Carl Delavocci, the voice Widger, Andy Ultra Heart, and Alan the Storyteller Smith. Now, gentlemen, we have a show packed full of absolutely nothing. So let's start unpacking it straight away with some more high energy review reads from my very good friend, the Right Honourable Mr. Andrew Hart.
Thank you, Lick. One review today from Ben Hayward entitled No Frill, Simple but Reassuringly Brilliant Advice, Tips, Insights and Banter, 6 stars. Having left a large national restricted advice firm to set up a new IFA business, I found this podcast a complete godsend. I've learned and implemented so much from what I have heard on here, and the fact that our fledgling business survived the first 12 months and is now thriving is in no small part down to these 4 splendid chaps and Nick's awesome Google group. You haven't got a Google group, have you, Nick? An absolute must for any advisor, no matter what stage of their career. I even got to meet Andy and Alan today at Hum, disproving the adage of never meet your heroes. Back to you, Nick.
Wow, what a lovely review. Thank you very much, Ben. We do appreciate that.
Last year,
yeah, I was going to say, we haven't caught up, have we? Because Hum's only a couple of weeks ago.
Last year,
that was from Hum
2023. With that popular.
Okay.
Great stuff. Brilliant. Please do keep the reviews coming in. They give us a real shot in the arm. Okay, episode 59. Somehow we've made it this far. Let's give this episode a timestamp with some topical tidbits, and we have some exciting news. Andrew, tell the Trappists what's happening next year.
So following on from our first TRAP Live in this year, 2024, we are planning on doing it again in 2025. And it's been a bit of a ordeal to try and get this sorted out. Long story short, today is an announcement of save the date. We believe it's going to be on the 14th of May 2025, which is a Wednesday. It's the same day that Brett Davidson is running a conference. So the idea is to go to Brett's in the day. If you're part of that gang, come to our gang in the evening. And then the following day, on the 15th of May, it's Abraham's Conference 3.0. Again, if you're part of that gang, you can kill 3 birds with 1 stone, as they say. Central London, 6 till 9. More details to be revealed. That's it. So today, save the date. We're 99% sure it's going to be on that date. There's an outside chance it might move. That's going to be a bit annoying, but I think it won't. So that's it. 14th of May, 2025, TRAP Live in the evening, 6 till 9, slightly later than it was last year. That's about it, unless anyone else has anything to mention.
Great stuff. How exciting is that? And if you buy tickets to all 3 events, the Trap Pack are pleased to announce you'll get no discount on ours. Okay, let's go down to the next topical tidbit. I read a great article from a young IFA who's on Substack, Tom Redmayne, on the agonies of property investing, and really nailed it for me. And I do think the buy-to-let scene in the UK, especially with this stamp duty hike from the last budget, I think it's really over. And Tom, he's far more analytical on these things than me. I tend to go on gut feelings, but he broke down all these different scenarios of, if you're a basic rate taxpayer, high rate taxpayer, and using the current mortgage rates. And you cannot break even on any of the current scenarios based on a typical yield on a typical property. I know they're all different, but a really good piece, really well written. Obviously, there's a link to it in the so-called show notes, but well done, Tom. I think you got quite a bit of traction with that piece because I put it back out on Twitter and had quite a few comments and so forth. So I just kind of substantiating my gut feeling that I think it's over for property. I know the Irish experience from the great financial crisis was worse, I think, than in the UK. But I still think there's a love affair a little bit, isn't there, with property in Ireland, Carl?
Yeah, I think, though, that the difference these days is that it's not necessarily driven by outrageous amounts of debt, leverage, whatever you want to call it, that, I do think as a nation we have learned our lesson, or mostly anyway, But the Irish still do like their property, and that's okay too. But, I don't think family fortress portfolios are going to be blown up by debt to the same extent that they were back in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12. You still read in the papers about some people still trying to get deals done 15 years later, crazy stuff. Yeah. But imagine the mental turmoil of that, apart from anything else. That's just not okay.
It's a superb article. Tom has nailed it. It's very analytical, even though Tom in real life is not so. He's quite a personable financial advisor. Works for a decent firm, Rock Wealth, who are doing good things. But it's a great article. Definitely worth checking out.
Nice guy, Tom. I met Tom at Humans Under Management, I think. Really personal guy. Yeah, he's been coming. Keep doing great work, Tom.
Yeah, he is. And the other thing that his article highlights for me is, we've talked about it often on this podcast in the past, is, when you create content, you write stuff, write a newsletter, write a blog, make a video, do something like that, you can really get traction. That one did blow up from it. It was really well written. It must have taken him ages to do all his research and what have you, but it was excellent. But his name and his ideas and his content and his thoughts are across probably thousands of people now. So it just shows you the power of sharing your best ideas. Recommend any other younger advisors, or any advisor, does that a bit more often.
Yeah, get your thoughts out there. Definitely start shipping some content.
And keep showing up. Keep doing the content.
Do the work.
Not everything is going to go viral on you, but you got to be very consistent over a long period of time.
Show up, show your work. The Austin Kleon.
Show your work. Mantra. Yeah.
Okay, now Carlos, we've got you on the mic, and we know you're a bit under the weather with the some kind of grotty chest infections, but we're going to keep you talking because, and I'm going to tee you up because you haven't printed off the show notes, but I'm giving you a pass because you're not well. The Blackbee debacle continues to unwind.
Yeah, I've mentioned the Blackbee. I've mentioned Solar 21. Both have actually been in the papers over the last week or so. I think some of the stuff that was going on, there's the Gardaí are involved now, certainly in the Blackbee thing, I think. And look, it just goes to show, keep it simple.
That's the police, Nicholas.
Yeah, that's the police. And look, on the one hand, good to see that, if there has been fraudulent activity, that at least it's being investigated, and that the full force of the law will come down upon anyone who has acted fraudulently. They are the allegations. I'm not saying that there was fraudulent activity, but look, this goes back to, time and time again, we're talking about keep it simple. And if it seems too good to be true, well, then it probably is. And, these two particular investment institutions in Ireland have gone remarkably pear-shaped. I know the Solar 21, they were talking about getting a percentage back, if they kind of stayed the course and blah, blah, blah. And it seems that that's not going to be the case. That was always going to be something that was going to happen. Take whatever you can and get out and start again. It would be my advice to anybody.
Okay, great stuff. Just so you know, Colin, my end, certainly you've frozen on the video. I know it's still recording, but if you're giving me verbal clues with your visual clues, I can't see them because you're frozen.
Okay.
It's all right for me.
It's all right for me, yeah. No worries.
Yeah, okay. Cool. Okay, sorry, Smithy. Yes, I missed out your item. I have one job, and I've managed to cock it up within 9 minutes
fine.
of the show.
It's just a quick one, and it actually just followed on from Tom's article. You referenced Tom's article in property. I just thought it was an interesting follow-up in that our friends, the mighty St. James's Place, have now formally closed. Are you looking for the drop?
You underestimate the power of the dark side.
Yeah, SJP have actually closed all their property funds. So the normal kind of unit trust property fund, their pension property fund, their like the bond life assurance type property fund. So there's a couple of billion in there. So they've effectively closed it for new business. It is a gated fund anyway. You can't get your money out. There's a lot of...
From your reading, Alan, are they just saying we're not getting back into this? Too much hassle. We're just going to keep it traditional investing, which is a good move.
From my reading, that's what they do. I find it remarkable, really, that they are just saying that property as an asset class is just not something that we're going to offer at all anymore.
Good.
There's always been an issue over this type of fund, which effectively actually buys and owns bricks and mortar, office blocks, shopping centres, all that, in an open-ended investment fund, where people have got effectively, immediate daily liquidity. So inevitably, what happens is markets crash. Everyone wants their money out. They've got to try and sell properties. They put this kind of gate up so you can't get your money out for a period of time, which I think they've got still at the moment. What do you call it? Like, there used to be market value adjustments with profit funds, that sort of thing. If you want to get your money out, there might be an impact or a penalty. There's certainly been quite a lot of comment on it I've seen online, in that they are still obviously taking their fees, which are all added in a couple of percent, about 1.8 or 2% a year, and you can't get your money out. And the fund has actually gone nowhere. I think it's given negative returns over the last couple of years. So it's a kind of sorry state of affairs. It's just quite interesting as the largest wealth management company in the UK. Is that the direction of travel? I mean, obviously, commercial property is quite different to the buy-to-let type.
It's kind of happened, isn't it? Because a lot of L&G, M&G, Aviva, I think, have all are closing down or have closed down their bricks and mortar funds for these. These things came up, and then again, back to the great financial crisis, these issues came up with liquidity. Yeah. People wanted to, but you just can't sell a retail park overnight. It takes bloody years to line up and to get the cash in to pay investors.
Are you saying, sorry, Nick, Aviva have closed to new money, or they're slowly trying to sell all the assets as well?
I know M&G are closed. I might be
I'm not sure that's true.
M&G are closing their one down. And I think that
so
M&G
no new money's coming in, and they're paying out all investors. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the big ones are still operating. It is another thing. I mean, there is research which says that commercial property is a diversifier, via a REIT type investment structure. I see you shaking your head, Andrew. There's a lot of research that says it does provide some diversification qualities. If you look in the great financial crisis, global property did not fall as fast as traditional global equities.
It's not needed for a long-term portfolio. It's not needed. It's just overcomplicated for no reason. Global equities, bonds, that's my opinion. Obviously, everyone has their own opinion.
Yeah, fair enough. But quite interesting, isn't it, that they have gone, and on top of Tom's comment, you could argue that if you were a contrarian investor, this now is exactly the time to invest in property, whilst everyone else is leaving it. Property prices, if everyone's selling, then prices are depressed. So good if you're a long-term investor, if that's what your bag is.
Just back to the point you've raised, Alan. I don't know where I sit on this in terms of asset managers, wealth managers, whilst they close down a fund and deal with all the admin, charging their fee that's already agreed. So what's the counter argument? They should not charge fees now to existing clients. I'm just trying to struggle to work out what I think the fair thing to do here.
My view would be they should offer a discounted fee. They're still managing it. There's still activities going on, but to charge sort of full fat fees, it's probably a managed fund. Well, you can't get your money out. You're locked in. Performance is pretty poor. And there's nothing you can do about it. It just, I'm sure they should apply a discount. Yeah, I think it's obviously they're perfectly within their rights to do what they're doing, but it's not a great PR exercise, is it? It's not they've certainly picked up a lot of bad publicity. I've seen just reading a few comments online and then blogs and what have you. But there we go. Is it the demise of property as an asset class? We shall see.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. So let's see if I can get this one right. We've done Wodges out of order. Ultra, Warren Buffett letter.
Yeah, Warren Buffett, excuse me, published a letter last week that some of you may have read. It's all around the sort of gifting pledge and him giving away the bulk of his wealth to society rather than to his children. It's quite a profound letter. I think it's worth reading. The numbers are staggering. I mean, this guy, when he decided to start giving away his wealth, he owned 508,000 shares of Berkshire Hathaway. If he kept them in its original state, it would be worth $368 billion today. He'd be the richest man in the world by an absolute mile. This is the magic of compounding, and compounding in a productive asset class that provides a rising income, rising capital value, over multi-decades, which is businesses. It's a really good read. He talks about how important it is to discuss how you plan to pass on your wealth with your children. He recommends every wealthy person or not so wealthy people, write the will, run it past the children, get everyone to discuss it. He said he's seen families been ripped apart after the death. Imagine building your family and having, generations of, children, grandchildren, extended family, and then on your passing, everyone's just at each other, and it just rips the whole family apart.
That's how it works, isn't it? We know about these mega wealthy families that within a few generations, it's gone on.
Yeah, I mean,
it's gone and on scams and drugs and
obviously
and whatever else.
Obviously, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger have spoke about this at length when Charlie was alive, and they've seen it done well and they've seen it done badly. And he does mention again the thing in the letter, which is the sort of famous Warren Buffett quote, which some wealthy people may have quoted back to you. You should leave your children enough so that they can do anything, but not enough that they can do nothing. So again, his children are financially independent, and fortunately, all three of them are very much into philanthropy. But yeah, it's a great letter. It's class. Warren Buffett is a class act. And as I say, it's well worth 3 pages of a PDF to just check it out. But it's almost like he's seeing the demise. He's thinking, I may have months here. Again, I don't know. This is just me, reading between the lines. But it's a decent letter.
What is he at? 94, something like that.
Something like that. Yes, his birthday's on the 31st of August. I can't remember exactly how old he was, but yeah. I remember the day, not his, not the age at the moment. That's showing my age.
He's send him a card.
He's an old boy, but yeah, it's decent. It's worth checking it out.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, and probably there's some. It relates somewhat to our meat and potatoes later on. The kind of value of where an advisor can provide this kind of family counsel and sort of join the dots, get the right people in the room together, discuss all these things in a coherent and independent manner. But I'll check that out. Sounds good. Sounds worth reading.
I mean, the phrase that sticks into my head when people are discussing these things is fair is not equal. Sometimes families and the wealthy father or mother, they're trying to always do things equally.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you've got to do it fairly, and that may or may not be equally. But once they hear that, it releases a lot of pressure for them usually, because they're just trying to just divvy it up as they would expect it to be as an equally. But it's like, no, that fair is not equal. But yeah, there's the books and coaches and consultants. There's so many people in this space, so it's quite tricky.
Okay, cool. Right, I'm just Googling whether it's a good idea to refresh a browser when recording using Riverside. So sorry, I was a bit distracted. Okie dokie. So lifestyle fund woes.
Yeah, look, this comes up periodically on this discussion on this podcast. It was in the papers again at the weekend. Front page of the money section in the Telegraph. Lady who was in a company pension scheme. She had about £700,000 in her fund. Approaching retirement, it was inevitably in one of these horrific lifestyling funds. Got significantly moved into long-dated government bonds just around the time. It was just the perfect storm of bad timing. A lot of bad luck involved in her case. I think she's 60, 61, planning retirement. And it was kind of what I found was very poignant in the story was the knock-on effects for her family, because the idea was she was going to retire. She was going to spend time whilst I think it was her daughter and son-in-law were out to work, looking after the grandchildren while the parents were out at work. And now she literally can't afford to do that. She's back at work. She's a receptionist in the company. She's got to keep on going because because £300,000 has been lost from the value of her pension fund just at the precise time she was going to retire. Now, we know why these things are. And in terms of her purchasing power, if she was buying an annuity, her income probably would have been roughly the same as what she'd have otherwise. But I suspect she didn't want to buy an annuity. She wanted the flexibility of a sort of drawdown type product. It does. I mean, it names all the people involved, the company, the advisors that are involved, and the advisor. And she's obviously been to ombudsman, everyone left, right, and centre, and she hasn't got a leg to stand on because she declined the advice. Apparently, the advisor, who I think are called Origin, who I think are a national firm. Apparently, they offered everyone, but including her, do you want to pay for some individual advice? And she declined. So she sat in the default lifestyle fund, 300,000. The fund's gone from 700,000 to 400,000, and the impact of that means she's got to carry on working for several years. She can't look after the grandchildren. A big impact in her life, her lifestyle, and what she was hoping to do for that family. So
this is one of thousands of people, maybe even tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands. It's an absolute travesty. It's asset misallocation in all of its glory. But again, compliant and legal, Lifestyling was set up by investing illiterates. It's just obliterated, real people's life savings. It's an absolute freaking travesty.
Carl, do you have this type of investment structure in pensions? It's workplace pensions, company pensions mainly, but not only in Ireland. Yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose they were traditionally set up when they came to their retirement date, they had to buy annuities, and then it kind of did make sense. But when we had the ARFs introduced well over 20 years ago at this stage, it became much less of something that was important or that should be used. It still is there. They are, I know, making some changes to these lifestyle funds. They're target date funds. That's just another word for them, isn't it? That when you're kind of 5-10 years out, you start reducing your equity exposure and you go into bonds, and we saw how that worked for people over the last couple of years. So it's still a thing. I think it's much less of a thing now, and certainly in the market that we would be operating in, for the kind of higher net worth folks with the max pension fund pots. I don't think any of them would be in these types of these types of investment portfolios. But yeah, they still do exist, and they're still there. And look, I have said, and I will say, that there are some times when I do think they might be appropriate, but certainly in the general scheme of things, I don't think they're fit for purpose at all.
I think that's the challenge for all these. You're giving kind of generic, not advice, but just guidance. Yeah. And it is a fact. I think when this came up last time, I had a look and try to find out the amount of people who actually annuitize at retirement age. And it's a reasonable number. It's not no one. I think it's about 10%, 15% just automatically will buy an annuity. Obviously, rates have gone up significantly in the last couple of years. And for those people, it's kind of okay. So on the basis that if people are getting no advice, there's no one at their workplace giving them advice, they haven't paid for a workplace advisor, they haven't paid for an independent individual advisor, they might just, they might get an option, might get a letter saying, which of these do you want to have? And one of them, of course, this is back to another conversation that comes up periodically, is words are important. Do you want a guaranteed income for the rest of your life? Tick here. Or do you want to invest a fund and carry on?
In the stock market.
Yeah, in the stock market.
Exactly.
Do you want to gamble your fund in the stock market?
The framing is terrible, yeah.
Yeah, so, for a number of people, this has been okay.
Yeah, but for that reason, that's where, it might actually be a reasonable solution for those types of folks. And, I think as financial planners, we tend to deal with the people who can afford to pay for financial advice, after all. And so it's highly unlikely that it would be appropriate for the vast, vast, vast majority of our clients, our individual client families. However, just generalizing and saying they're no good at all, I think you just need to caveat it a small bit and just say, look, there are some scenarios where it actually may be appropriate.
I'm happy to say
agree.
they're no good.
I think there should be, the one thing that should come out of this is that employers should really encourage people to attend workshops or meetings. Anyone within 5 years of retirement, come along with, and they will pay for somebody to advise on all these various options.
I just think most people aren't interested, mate. They're not interested.
This is the problem. And for all we know,
them to go.
For all we know, this lady was invited 3 times and turned it down, and then got a statement. You're onto hiding to nothing here. But ultimately, again, it's another suggestion that people should seek advice, particularly at probably one of the most important times in their entire life, is just this pre-post retirement.
I mean, this lady had 700 grand in a workplace pension scheme, and you're saying she went back to do a job as a receptionist. I know you're just sort of trying to recollect the story. But she's got a few quid. She could easily sit down with an advisor and get some decent advice, but. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes, though, Andy, you'll find people with 700 grand or more are a little bit afraid to sit down with an advisor.
I get it.
They don't understand
the same
that's our
challenges
challenge
that everyone needs to approach us. Yeah, it's unfortunate that she couldn't find an advisor that she knew, liked, and trusted.
It is.
I've turned this off for all of the clients that are ongoing clients of mine, and they've saved 6 figures in hindsight. Some of them have actually just given me a call. Oh, Andy, out of interest, so they just sent me a letter saying about this lifestyling thing. Is it worth I speak to you about this? And I'm like, yeah, of course it's freaking worth you speak to me about it. It's really important. And then we move forward and fill in an incredibly long-winded attitude to risk questionnaire and we turn it off, don't we?
I think there's an opportunity here for advisors. If you are dealing with clients who are, let's say, in their 40s, to offer it as a kind of free or impartial second opinion. If your mum or dad are heading into retirement, or older relatives, maybe older siblings or whatever, obviously if they've engaged with you and they value your services, your client, and say happy to have a chat with anyone who's pre-retirement, and just for free, just say, I don't think you should do this, or I think you should do that. Again, you use a fine line again for us because it's not advice, but it's tricky. But there we go. It's a sad story, and unfortunately, it will keep happening.
There is free information on the internet all about this. I did a whole podcast on it, lifestyling your way to poverty. That, again, is free advice on the internet, and I'm obviously not pro it. So if people look, search hard enough, they can find these things.
Okay. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, and lifestyling falls definitely into that category. Okay,
Perfectly.
Me next. Oh, another pension story gone wrong. This one is not about lifestyling and sort of not knowing what you're doing and just letting things ride. This is about someone making an active decision. An American guy, there's a link to it in the Wall Street Journal. This poor sap in 2023 transferred his entire 401k, the equivalent of a personal pension, I guess, into a fund offering a 15% guaranteed return. 15% guaranteed return. Of course, it's a con. It's run by a con man who is known to the SEC to be a con man. And this poor guy is probably going to lose all of his money. It's gone. $50 million have gone into this particular fund. I say fund in quotes. Whether it actually ever existed, I don't know. 340 individual investors. But again, just this greed thing. I mean, 50. I know. This thing of ours is the world that we absolutely live and breathe in, and we're immersed in it all the time. But surely, even Civvy Street has to understand that 15%, a 5% guaranteed return would have me raising my eyebrows. A 15% guaranteed return, it just smacks of do not go anywhere near it. But yet again, people just, and the guy says he browbeat his wife. He kept talking to his wife about this. I want to do it. And then she said, just threw her hands up and said, oh, crack on and do it. It's your pension pot. Because he thought this would be our financial salvation. He'd just been diagnosed with colon cancer at the start of 2023. And he thought, yeah, this is manna from heaven. 15% guaranteed return on my 700K. Within a few years, we'll have enough. Of course, it's gone horribly wrong. So, human nature is a failed investor in many ways.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you can't
It's a shame.
beat him up for it. I mean, he's got enough troubles, but it's human. It's the human condition. He's got both there: fear and greed. Fear of not having enough, worried about his health situation, not having enough money to get him through, and greed. And they're just natural human emotions. They drive a lot of decisions that we take. And with the benefit of hindsight, you say, "How crazy were you?" But at the time, and he's not the first. He won't be the last, unfortunately.
And of course, it wasn't through an advisor. It was through a friend who told him about this. So that friend probably feels terrible now because no doubt the friend was invested in this as well, and the misery just cascades out. Okay, human nature, baby. Right, Wodge, I'm going to tee you up. In your neck of the woods, the commission ban is gaining traction.
Yes, Kathleen Gallagher, who I've mentioned before, is a relatively new journalist writing for the Business Post here. And I think she's doing some really great stuff because she's challenging what's going on in our world. And she wrote about a potential commission ban, right? So an RDR here in Ireland, and Vanguard were quoted in the article as to say that they support such an RDR in Ireland, and there are a number of other firms quoted saying that they would support it. And the funny thing about that is, subsequent to the article, one of the other firms came out and said, no, we didn't say that at all. We think commission is okay or whatever. So it's interesting. There's still, if you see all the LinkedIn comments on the various articles that are posted about this particular commentary, we're still miles away from the financial advisor community deciding on what's the best thing to do. For me, the best thing to do is clear. I've been straight about this. I've been consistent. Just do RDR and let the clients decide who they want to deal with, and let everyone be absolutely open and upfront about what they're actually charging. I think we need it. I think it will professionalize everything. here in Ireland. But we're a good bit away from it still. However, to see it in the mainstream is good. And I think if we can keep it in the mainstream and keep that discussion going, that debate going, I think it can only be good. So fair play to Kathleen Gallagher. I think she's upsetting the apple cart a little bit. And so it should be. And so it should be.
Yes. We all need to share the weight of disturbing the apple cart. Can't leave it to one or two people in Ireland, can we, Carl? Okay.
But I think, Carl, I think this is great. Obviously, we went through this in the UK all those years ago, and there's a lot of, for those who are in the business and you operate on a commission basis, there's a lot of fear and trepidation. How the hell are we going to survive? And people wouldn't possibly pay the commission, the rate, or pay it in a normal fee. And the reality is, all our experiences, that people do. All right, our advisors have to up their game in terms of creating a value proposition, creating something that's worth paying for. But what it does over time is it just creates a higher level of trust amongst potential clients. For those people who are fighting against it, I suspect once they go through the pain and getting the other side, they'll win more clients. There'll be less people kind of wary or avoiding, and you guys are getting commission. This very conditional type thing. If I sell you a product, you get a commission. I think it's the right direction of travel, but I know there's a lot of incumbent.
Rid of the bottom 20% or whatever.
The people that don't have a value proposition
chunk,
will probably disappear from the industry.
The article started quoting, kind of mis-selling and the fact that someone's pension pot was going to be put into structured products and there was some intermediary going to get between 10 and 20% commission and all that. I actually think that's not the issue here. That you're always going to have bad actors, okay? So that's on the one. We just got to accept that, and we just got to call bad behavior out when it's there. This is a much bigger issue. This is a complete ban on commissions on investments and pensions. I think we should continue to have commissions on life cover and that kind of stuff because I think that has to be sold.
Yeah, that's sold. Yeah.
But I've read a lot of the comments on LinkedIn from various advisors, and people who disagree with me are making good points. So it's not cut and dried.
Right.
It's not something that this is the only way forward. But we need the central bank to, kind of sit up and say, okay, well, there's European legislation coming in now, and do we adopt that European legislation? I think that's probably where we'll go, but I think we're some years away from it just now. But it was interesting that some of the firms, or one of the firms that was quoted in the article, then came out and said, no, I don't. We were misquoted in the article. We are not for a ban on commissions. So look, this has a way to run. It's interesting, and I would just urge everybody, all of the financial advisor community, just be respectful to each other with your views and make your views. It's totally okay to have opposing views, but make them respectfully, because it's just not a good look when people are just having pops off each other.
Yeah. Just back in the real world, Carl, if you had to hazard a guess, how far off do you think a commission being banned on pensions and investments is going to?
It will happen within the next 5 years, is my firm view.
Do you think so?
You think within the next 5 years?
Brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Because
so the legislation is brewing in the background at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to. I think we will be forced into it because obviously we're part of the EU, and I think there'll be EU legislation that we will
I don't get
implement.
that.
I think the EU's years away.
Germany
across
and Spain mainland
and
Europe,
France.
exactly. It's a complete commission dominated by
All
banks.
as if the banks are going
Huge
to
layerings of commissions and fees. Speak to anyone who operates in Italy, Spain, Germany.
Okay,
it's different markets.
Oh,
so
it's interesting. All right, 5 years, interesting.
Yeah. Now, look, I backed this horse back in 2014 when we set up Métis Ireland. So,
well, if
I
you
was
keep
wrong.
saying 5 years, if you keep saying 5 years, if you keep saying
Exactly.
one of these days,
like
you're going to be bang on, mate.
Yeah, like the guy calling a property crash. Yeah. Eventually you'll be right. No, I do think. Look, it's just. Very encouraging to see it in the mainstream financial media because, look, apart from anything else, our clients are reading this stuff. Mm-hmm. So our clients are going to now be talking about this. And I have seen this for absolute sure over the last couple of years. Clients are more au fait with what's okay and what's value and what's not.
Sorry, do you have just a little bit quick question? Do you have, or commission is the dominant model, But is that disclosed? Is it
Yeah,
the amount of
the
commission?
same question I was going to say. If I set
There
up
you go.
£100,000 investment for Mr. and Mrs. Miggins in Ireland, the initial document wouldn't say I'm going to get paid £5,000, keep it simple. But then when I have to send them a letter and say, just to let you know, page 7, I'm getting paid £5,000.
No, in your statement of suitability, your reasons why letter, you have to clearly outline what your, the effect of what your fees are, what your commissions are, and the effect on, you have to outline your management charges and all that. But then there's what they call a KID document.
We have them.
Yeah, and it's again disclosed there. The problem with some of the KID documents is they're generic. So they show the maximum commission that could be paid. And that has caused us all sorts of issues with clients going, what the hell? I've just read now. You guys will find this.
Paid
very
thousands.
few people actually read this stuff, but the few that do go, hold on a second, you said you were...
Yeah.
And it's like, no, they have to disclose. That's the maximum allowable.
Messy.
But
that's one of my issues is...
Does it say so we will earn £5,000, £10,000? Does it actually say that in monetary terms? Or is it a kind of combination of
Smoke and mirrors.
Does it quote numbers?
I think it will say the amount, yeah. Like we specify the amount in our statement of suitability. But it's...
Because I remember before RDR, you guys, Andrew may just remember this. No, but it was... when commission disclosure was brought in, still had commission, but you actually had to disclose the amount.
1993/4.
Is that when it was?
Yeah, I wasn't born then.
And the,
You were 13.
I was working at Standard Life then, and the advisors I was speaking to, oh my God, it was like the end of the world. They're actually going to have to actually tell their clients.
But it was still on page 3, wasn't it, Alan? It was still on page 3.
There's loads of stories about
ripping
those.
off the final page.
Yeah, I had advisors when I was a broker consultant. They just tear the last page off the quote.
Well, there was
the only
a
thing that was
company.
on it was the commission. It
There
didn't
was
have
a
any other
company
information.
that I won't mention, and they were just famous for they had 2 page 12s, and one quoted full pounds and pence and everything else, and the other just said your advisor will let you know how much you get paid.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I mean, this is ridiculous how things have moved on. Like page 1 to 11 was stapled, but the 12th pages had a paper clip, which often just fell out in the envelope somewhere. But we've moved on a bit since then, I think.
Yeah, and look, we are definitely miles ahead of there, right?
Yeah.
So we are way, way, way better than we used to be, but I think we've a bit to go just yet. But it's
it's progress. Yeah, if you get the press on your side, get some people writing about it in the papers that, as you say, your clients read. You think, this is quite a good idea. This is the direction of travel we should be heading in. So good. Yeah. We'll check in again in 5 years, Carl.
But you need a bit more of someone who's in a position of power, who's a bit more of a maverick in the investment and pension space that's going to really, really drive this.
Like Carl Widger.
Like Carl Widger, perhaps.
Yeah. So interesting.
Well, I have been, and it's been falling on deaf ears.
I mean,
so
someone
far.
that's a regulator that makes it their life's mission to get this implemented.
Yeah, but I honestly think, right? There might be a few people, will struggle, but ultimately it will make this a more professional business for us all to operate in. I think it will elevate the work that we're doing, and I think that if we go down this direction, it's something that can only help the clients, but I think the advisors will reap the rewards of it as well. I really do believe that.
Yeah. Completely. There's no profession that charges commissions. There's industries and sales industries, but profession in terms of lawyers, doctors, medical people.
So the providers need to help here, because the providers, I've said this before, right? So there are a lot of smaller operators who are just moving their chunks of business around, right?
Yeah.
And they're getting 5% commission, and then there's exit penalties,
stuff,
and then in 5 years they move it again. They find a reason to move it around, right? So I've always argued that in pension funds, right? Well, this is really easy. Why don't we take the bull by the horns ourselves, and get the providers to say, no, if you're moving a pension fund, if it's not introducing new business, there's no commissions or fees allowable, right? Now, here you go, because what I've heard is, insurance pension provider A saying, oh, be careful of that firm over there, because their persistency rate is terrible. And I'm like, Yeah, but when you took the money in, that provider over there were like you, or that intermediary over there was your best friend and your buddy. So you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth here. And then with the PRSAs are there's an awful lot of them launching new PRSAs, and you've like 34 different charging structures.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, guys. This is not professional.
Honestly, this is exactly UK
Exactly what we had, yeah.
Whenever you said it was all those years ago, and exactly that. It was always a reason to move it. Someone else, some other company had like 0.01% lower fees. So you go back to the client, move it. It's just all the pension providers are just borrowing the money. It's your turn now. You can have all these funds for 5 years, and then we'll move them off again to someone else. Yes, Nick.
Yeah.
We're taking that to the nth degree. When stakeholders were introduced back in 2000, 2001, stakeholder pensions, 100% allocation, no bid offer spread, no exit penalties.
Yeah.
But the insurance companies who are driven by sales targets, that's all they look at, money coming in. They don't seem to focus on money going out. Mm-hmm. They were like paying 5-6% commission on stakeholders. So you'd invest 100, you'd do a pension transfer into a stakeholder, 100 grand, say, you get your 5 grand commission, and the very next day, you could switch that to another provider and get another 5%. And that went on for about 18 months until the life insurance companies just started closing agents. Some of these cowboy IFAs just taking it to the end. But what they do each time, they'd say to the client, we're going to rebate back a little bit of the commission this time. So each time they're fractionally getting a slightly reduced annual management charge in the contract, still earning thousands of pounds, just leaving a carnage of switches. Well, there were firms you could actually, before it got outlawed, you could actually share commission with the client. So you say, we're going to move this, particularly the large company pension schemes. There's a lot of money involved. We'll move it around, speak to the directors. We'll move it from, company A to company B. We'll earn another 100 grand, and we'll give you 20 grand of it for your trouble.
Are you free for lunch? Are you free for lunch next Thursday?
Exactly.
Yeah, but
funny enough, I am. Where are we going?
Just
go on, Carl.
Final point. If you're in business and you're looking maybe to sell your business down the line, right? First question any buyer is going to ask you is, can I have your persistency rate? And I don't want it from you. I want it from your providers. Yeah. Now there, straight off, you're going to see, okay, there's a problem here.
And so just to close the band, just to echo that point, really, I saw Andy shake his head when you said it. I wouldn't rely on the providers to drive this going forward because they want advisors as distributors of product.
Yes.
When RDR came in this country, it was at the same time that the platforms really took off. Now that might be me conflating, it might be a coincidence, but I don't think it is. I think
my point.
And then they start needing to buy platforms where the distribution ends up.
100%. I'm not naive enough to think that is going to happen. But what I'm saying is that the providers pointing the finger at the intermediaries all the time that's not okay either. They are definitely part and parcel of this problem.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Well, that's a very interesting little discussion. That. Okay. So storyteller, US cash management plop.
Yeah, we seem to be having a lot of kind of doom and gloom stories, but there are a few out there, to be fair. But we're just observing what's going on in the world around us. This was something I picked up from the other side of the pond over in the US, and the heading is, I have no money. Thousands of Americans see their savings vanish in Synapse Fintech crisis. So reading this article, which I popped a link to in the notes, it looks like this company is one of these fintech aggregators for other banks and deposit holders. And these are all cash deposits. These were not sort of crazy investments. This is people, and savers putting the money into effectively bank accounts. Let me see. Thousands of Americans will receive little or nothing from savings accounts that were locked during the collapse of fintech middleman Synapse. Customers believe the accounts were backed by the full faith and credit of the US government, blah, blah, blah. People have lost sums ranging from $7,000 to well over $200,000. And on it goes. Millions are lost. It's just another one of these things. We talked about it before. I'm sure all the ones that operate in the UK are fair and reasonable, but it just gives you pause for thought. When you've got these kind of tech middle companies and an extra layer of complexity and risk, and it's only when things blow up or go wrong do you find out what the problems are, when everything's moving in the right direction. But there's millions of dollars have been lost, and these people have got no recourse. It has vanished. So again, I'm still standing by my view. Cash accounts are national savings possibly someone like Transact, for example, with all their kind of security measures in place. But I would not be going too close to some of these kind of new startup fintech kind of cash aggregators. I'm sure others will disagree, but that's my view.
Well, you coined it well, Alan. The upside is minimal. The downside is catastrophe. So taking exactly all of that risk for a minimal upside is insane.
Yeah.
Talking of Transact, we went to the Transact Annual Connect event last week, and Nicholas did a little pitch on stage. How did it go, Nicholas? It was a great event.
Very well. Very well. I got some laughs. That's all that matters. No, it was good. It was good. I don't think Transact were quite expecting the responses I gave to them. But given that they didn't run any questions by me before I got on stage,
come on, and you put in our message group. You said, I don't think you'll be invited back.
No, I don't think you'll be invited.
What did he say?
Well, I'm not going to go into the detail. That wouldn't be fair. He's not here to defend himself. But he was
suffice to say, he won't be invited back.
He was on stage with another gentleman. It was meant to be sort of a fireside chat, but the guy spoke for the first 7 or 8 minutes. Nick didn't really get a word in, and then Nick just did a bit of a sort of long rambling Nick.
I was on stage with Jonathan Gumby. I was on stage with the CEO.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a round table. It's just two of us, and then Glenn Sweet, their sort of ops manager, sort of facilitating it. But it was good.
No, he did well. It was humorous, but I don't think he said what the people in the room expected him to say. But it's fine. He's work in progress.
So he was true to form.
He's work in progress. He lifted the mood and the spirit in the room. It was very lighthearted, and then we all went for lunch. But I'd hazard a guess. I don't think he's going to be invited back to speak about that subject.
Okay.
He might be invited back for another subject, but not that subject.
I don't know. I think I burned that. Okay. Right. Let me get now. This one, Wodge, I'm a bit confused here. Do you want to mention the new Métis Ireland CIO, or do you not?
I do, of course.
I go for that.
So I mentioned, I mentioned back at TRAP Live that it was something I was considering, which was appointing a chief investment officer, and we have done just that. We've delighted to get our guy. He starts this week, actually, and. Like the idea of appointing a CIO is not to we're going all active. We're going to have crypto. We're going to have this. It's just to try and deliver our message, our story, in a more, I suppose, strategic kind of way. And for someone who's got all the qualifications, who has come from, has seen how it's done before, and has went, no, I think that the Métis Ireland investment philosophy, which is keep it simple,
world class,
track the market. Class. Yeah, I think it's for somebody kind of really well qualified who has a lot of experience to be able to say that to our clients. And our challenge, or Declan's challenge, is going to be to I suppose tell clients who are used to being sold complexity that actually simplicity is the way forward. Because complexity is sexier and it sells probably easier. So, we're really delighted to have him on board. It's got a little bit of media traction here, which is good, because it puts the Métis Ireland name out there. And, very excited we've had a good year, and we're looking to drive things on now over the next couple of years. And Declan King is going to be front and centre of all of those ambitious goals that we have.
That's excellent, Carl.
Congratulations, mate. Congratulations.
He's going to be like the guy, the manager of the Nevada State Pension Fund. Who's got nothing to do all day in terms of managing. But I imagine he'd be a great...
Just so you know, everything's working really well at the moment. We want you to just sort of confirm that.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Declan, just don't touch anything. It's all fun.
Yeah.
But he'd be great.
I've got this new idea, Carl. New fund. No. We've not introduced a new fund for 12 years.
But he'll be great at that.
Tweaks around the edges that we can
here we
definitely
go.
do.
Oh, yeah. Structured note around the end. A little
commodity fund.
Just to spice things up.
Have you seen this geared Nvidia fund?
But I think it's a really killer move, because for those clients you've got, and we've talked about this again many times in the past, they're just saying yes, but the company I'm with now, or whatever, this sort of fancy DFM discretionary manager, they say this, they say that. Someone like Declan, from what I gather, can come in and say, look, I've operated in that way in that sort of company for years, and here's my truth. Here's what I really truly believe. It really, coming from him, it's got more credibility, with all respect, than coming from you or anyone else.
Basically employed an adult. He's an adult, isn't he? In the
well, he's got a track record. He's got a history. It's like he's seen the light. He says, "I think there's a better way of doing things than perhaps I've been involved in."
There's two main reasons that I thought that this was an appointment we had to make. Number one, our client advisory panel kept saying to us, "You're very evangelical about this financial planning. We all get it, but we want more around the investment." And I've been consistent saying that here on this podcast all the time. Yeah. So this will fix that. So, we will bring Declan into, the annual planning meetings and say, here's what you're in, here's why we think it's still a good idea, and here's blah, blah, blah. But also, as our case size has got bigger over the last couple of years, we are talking to people with significant net worth, and they are used to buying into the whole idea that complexity is where they should be at. So it's kind of twofold, really. But the tweaks around the edges, in over there, you guys have got, I know you've mentioned Transact, and they have their various deposit returns or whatever. We don't have any of that. So, maybe there's tweaks around those edges, right? So at the liquidity side of things, are there some things that we can introduce for our clients there that they may or may not like, but at least we can, say, okay, we have a solution for you. And to be, really pioneering in stuff that's probably just too hard to go at yourself. So now we've got a guy who kind of knows how this stuff is done. And I'm genuinely really, really, really excited as to, where this can bring us.
No, congrats. Great move. Well done.
Okay, good stuff. Thank you. Just conscious of time, we're 51 minutes in. Ultra, you mentioned crypto a few minutes ago. Your next point is on
this
crypto.
Was an article this weekend. So now 7 million Britons own crypto assets as Bitcoin surges to 95,000 on the current article, but it's pretty much tipped 100 or whatever. So 7 million adults in Britain now own crypto assets. Up
is that
from 5
because they're worried
million.
about sterling? Or
It's multitude of reasons. So it's 5 million Brits owned crypto in 2022. Now 7 million own crypto in 2024. The average holdings, just to give you an idea of this, is £1,842. So just under £2,000. So minimal in the grand scheme of things. But from a marketing point of view, crypto investing has definitely worked, considering that 7 million people have pulled the trigger on it. Obviously, this story has only a few chapters in thus far, and it's going to be interesting how this plays out. But yeah, the FCA are getting a bit more involved now to start looking at directly regulating it. We don't know what that impact's going to have. We don't know, again, what the FCA are going to come out with, but it's messy.
Is it fair to say that you still cannot even, obviously it's not a regulated asset, it's not an asset class at all, but could anyone just go and buy an ETF? Or I know they exist in the US, but I don't think you've got access potentially.
I think you do.
UK regulated funds. I know you can go to Coinbase and just buy something, or buy directly
on a crypto
We'll
exchange.
try talking at different times. It might be easier for the listener.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, obviously, you can go directly onto crypto exchanges. In terms of traditional investment platforms, Alan, there are routes to access this type of asset, but you have to go via exchange traded notes, fill in a sophisticated investor questionnaire, blah, blah, blah. If you're that motivated, you'd do it. But yeah, who knows what the regulator's going to come out with. So,
keep an eye on MicroStrategy. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, the MicroStrategy story is incredibly interesting, but maybe not one for this. But yeah, that Michael Saylor or whatever his name is has got some
Michael
very
Saylor. We'll get Nick to talk about it on the next episode.
We'll bring it up maybe next week. See if there's
Okay.
It is interesting.
All right, Nick. Final point. Let's put us out of the misery.
Point. Just a bit of just know your providers, really know their foibles. So the IFA Forum, a member of the IFA Forum, tiny.cc/IFA Forum, 640 people, just saying.
And do you run that, Nick?
A good guy.
You run that, Nick?
Guy. He posted into the forum about, so it's in the public domain. I won't give away his name here. But he had he model portfolio services. I'm never too sure exactly what problem they're trying to solve. And this particular advisor had for outlier reasons, had one client in one model portfolio service. The only one the advisor has on his with his business. And before the budget, they did the CGT thing. They thought, well, rates are going to go up. We'll sell now at the existing rates. We know what they are, 10 and 18%. And all is good. But of course, within the 30 days that you have to be out of those funds for the bed and breakfasting to wash through, the model portfolio service, as many of them do, triggered an automatic rebalance of the GIA. Didn't tell the advisor. Don't really have a duty to tell the advisor they're going to do it. It's just part of their T's and C's, and bought back into those funds within the 30 days, thereby negating the whole bed and breakfasting process. And this advisor didn't know about it, and now it's going to, basically it's going to cost. It's not as horrendous as he first thought, but it's going to cost them about a few £100 to put the client back to where he would have been had the repurchase not gone through.
Is that all? Okay.
Yeah.
It thousands.
Yeah. Hang on, talk me through that. So they sold the fund, so it's sitting in cash.
The advisor put through a sale. Yeah, they went to cash, but the advisor didn't unlink the model portfolio service from the GIA. So X number of days later, say 10 days later, it must have been that time of the month where the MPS rebalanced. They thought, crikey, the computer thinks, oh, this client's 100% in cash. Their linked portfolio is X fund, X fund, X fund. Bought them all back again. Thereby negating.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Get it.
And it is interesting, isn't it? Because you just know your MPSs. Because apparently EBI, which is a big player, they will tell you if GIAs are being rebalanced ahead of the event, so you can do something about it. I think Timeline will let you opt out if you've got clients with certain GIAs that you don't want rebalanced. You can tell them in advance of the fact, but some of them don't. They will just rebalance. And so this is one advisor for my burgeoning empire that I'm building. But there are loads of advisors.
It just shows the jeopardy that's involved in this game. Honestly, something that's like a sort of mini black swan. You couldn't have predicted that. You've just done everything right. You've sold the fund. You're sitting in cash, waiting for the appropriate thing, and then something that no one really knew about.
I mean, and the poor advisor put this out to the forum. I think it was on Sunday, so he must have suddenly twigged, got an email. So that's his weekend written off, isn't it? Until he's thinking about it.
And I'd say it could have been. I mean, if it's only a few £100, he's got off lightly, because it could have been thousands, tens of thousands more.
Yeah. I don't understand how it's so low.
I bet out that there is maybe I don't know, maybe it's just a very small GIA. I imagine it probably is. But out there will be a horror story related to this, and it probably will be thousands of pounds of capital gain. Just trying to do the right thing, but not quite thinking the process through.
Good one.
All right. 57. This is a long topical tidbit, a long one. Let's draw it to an end and move on to the next part of the show, what we call the meat and potatoes. And the meat and potatoes for this one is the Advisor Alpha thing, which Vanguard, I think we'll give them credit for it. I hadn't heard of Advisor Alpha before they started launching their reports into this a good few years ago now. And I think they've got a website dedicated to Advisor Alpha. And it's this concept of just how much value does an advisor add to an advised client's wealth, and where are the components of that value add? And the Vanguard research into this is really, really interesting. I mean, it helps our cause, let's be honest about this. So maybe coming at this from a biased point of view, because, well, I'll let Ultra lead off onto exactly what it is and what the numbers are.
Well, yeah, you've pretty much covered off the start, Nick. So, yeah, there's a few studies that come out from various different providers. Every year, some of them, others are sort of periodically. They try to quantify the value of receiving advice. And we know this is a very subjective matter. One such study is a famous study by Vanguard called Advisor Alpha. I think they've sort of coined this term. And in their study, I think the latest one that they've come out with is in 2020 in terms of the PDF that they've issued, but they've got various materials online that sort of reconfirm Advisor Alpha sort of points. Anyway, so they've got 7 different modules that they've, because we all know financial advice costs. Keep it simple. It costs 2% a year, or whatever number you want to pick. But let's just go with that for this example. So if it costs that, then you need to be adding value of more than that to make it worthwhile to pay ongoing advice to a financial advisor. We know there's a lot of harder to quantify benefits of financial advice, that, strategic thinking partners with your clients, sleep well at night, discuss all points, avoiding mistakes, scam avoidance, endless, but they've tried to quantify it in more of a sort of grown-up way. So that's it. Does anyone else have any points, or should we just go through each one of these sort of modules that they've referenced?
Well, just give us this skim through the highlights of them. I've got a few points, but I'll let you finish off. You're focusing on Vanguard Advisor Alpha, and they've got all their kind of headlines,
module,
and they arrive at a total that they believe
they try to quantify each benefit, let's say.
7 categories,
7 categories, each benefit as a basis point. So does it add 0.5%? Does it add 0.1%? You know, again, people understand basis points. So the first thing they're talking about is suitable asset allocation using broadly diversified funds. So does an advisor add any value via asset allocation picking the right funds? According to them, in their first category, they're saying 0 basis points.
Which I disagree with.
Which I disagree with, so that's the first one to discuss. So does an advisor add value through asset allocation? Most clients end up in asset misallocation, and there's low returns, huge impact to their future family's life savings, etc., etc. So that's the first point. So advisor alpha, point 1, does the advisor and the firm add any value
100%.
through suitable asset allocation via funds? Over to you, Wad.
The perfect example of that is filling in a risk profiling questionnaire, and you come out as low risk, and you're in a 80% bond and 20% equity portfolio. Something like that.
Yeah, no, I
the
agree.
Advisor can, and I've very, very seldom in over a decade of doing this, very seldom come across cases where you failed to bring that person on the journey with you. And then the people who you have failed to bring on the journey with you probably shouldn't be investing at all. So I don't agree that there's 0 alpha, as we call it, there. Can I just go back to one thing you said, Andy, just at the start?
Yeah.
Where are you getting the financial advice cost 2% per annum? Is that just a...
Oh, I'm just throwing it out there as a starter. If you had to gun to the head, what does financial advice cost per year?
Say 1.6, whatever, but it's.
Oh, sorry, I was saying all.
Just
okay, actually,
financial advice
just
as a ballpark.
Yeah, financial advice fee. Yeah,
but it's
for everything.
But I think it's really important to segregate out here what the actual, because if you don't have financial advice, you're going to pay the other fees.
Oh, you're going to be paying those fees anyway. Okay, so
I think
that's
point, Carl. That's actually important to.
Okay, so the advisor
fee.
The advisor fee is between 0.75 and 1.
Yeah.
I'll go with that. Okay, so 0.85, just to give a one definitive number. The rest, as you say, Carl, you'll be paying platform custody fees and you'll be paying fund manager fees. So
just in case we had
advice fee,
yeah,
we'll go with 0.85 for this conversation. For suitable asset allocation via picking the right funds, I'm going to, for me personally, I'd put at least 1% on that, probably more. Every client I take on who's naturally ended up in their portfolio, I enhance their returns by putting them into a higher returning portfolio. I've not yet come across a client that's perfectly set up and then I've taken them on. So what's your thoughts if you had to give a number again?
I think at least, I think 1, 100%. I think it's also very surprising that they're saying 0 there, but anyway.
It's a bit weird. Maybe we might not have interpreted it correctly. Alan, Nick?
I'm going to wait till you've gone through it. I'll give it over. I'm going to go through each one by one. I
thought we were going to go through each one. That was what was on the docket, as they say. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
That's when you've got things to say, Alan, speak up. But if you haven't got things to say on a particular one, that's fine. Just.
If Alan says he wants to be quiet for a few minutes, let's just leave it as that. All right. I'm going to go into the next point. The next subject point is rebalancing, and they've put a value on this of between 0 and 43 basis points.
Yeah, that's such a range.
This is an odd one now.
No chance.
Yes, rebalancing I think does work, and it forces you to sell high and buy low, as a general rule. But yeah, I'm going with about 20 basis points on that. I'm happy with that. I know there's studies, falling out the trees in relation to this, but I'm not really going to quote any of them or go down that route. But I'd say it adds 20 basis points. Anyone else?
None at all, because if you're in the right fund at the start, the fund has been rebalanced within the fund. So,
but there's still a value to that, Carl. Even the fund DFA, it's rebalanced internally, but the returns are better.
That goes back to point number 1, being in the right asset allocation and being in the right types of funds. So
fine.
I think,
if you're in the one fund solution, which you guys advocate, then
it rebalances in the back end, Alan. It rebalances in the back end.
It's done automatically.
But it's
the advisor isn't adding any value.
But it's still adding to the returns. The fund does better.
See, the trouble with all these, and I am going to play devil's advocate throughout this, the trouble with these, and don't get me wrong, there's a load of value that advisors add. But the trouble with these is it depends on the client. What if a client comes to you and he's 100% Vanguard life strategy, Vanguard 100 or something?
Yep.
So the rebalance done automatically. It's in the right asset allocation. So far you've added 0. And depending on where he ends up, there might be negative alpha. If he moves into one of these discretionary fund managers because he wants to have a, someone with a double-barreled name giving advice. The point being that these are very broad and generic. And yes, I get it, but I'm not buying the rebalancing.
Get it.
As a significant value add. The asset allocation generally is, but we get clients coming to us who buy into the equity thing. They just need a bit of help. I think we can carry on because I think the bigger bigger value is in all the other things.
But there is one that we're all going to agree on. It's coming up. Wait for it. It's coming up. The suspense is killing me. Right, this one now, cost-effective implementation. Oh, I don't quite. In the old days, I think maybe if there was a higher barrier to entry, I think some advisors obviously detract because they charge high fees to implement. But anyway, let's just go with this one.
I don't even know what that means, really. That's kind of mean.
Yeah, I'm a bit...
but advisors are charging, again, look at whatever the data is, between 1% and 3% of investment portfolios to implement.
I think typically, Alan, it's about sort of 2.4%.
Right, 2.4%, whereas I can go on most platforms directly now for free, right?
Oh, I get that.
So,
all right, let's move on to one that we potentially agree on.
Okay.
Behavioural coaching. Behavioural coaching, according to Vanguard, they haven't even got a range. They said this adds at least 1.5% a year.
Yeah.
I'm massively in agreement with that. You're getting the clients to get the clients to avoid doing the wrong thing at the wrong time for the wrong reasons. Continually promoting great financial behaviour, removing financial anxiety, and getting them to do the right things and stick with the plan. So behavioural coaching, I'm a massive yes to at least 1.5% a year.
But under no circumstances call it that. Nobody wants to hear that. Oh, you're going to behaviorally
manage my behaviour,
coach me. So I get what it is.
I'm okay with coaching. I'm okay with coaching. Use the word coaching with clients. Like if you know them well.
Yeah, I mean, and this obviously is based on, and there is plenty of data, although it is also questioned. Would you call that survey Dalbar?
Dalbar, yeah.
That has certainly been questioned by some experts.
Mind the gap,
Yeah, mind the gap. But it is true that there is a lot of correlation. You can see data with fund flows. After this great, market sell-offs, people sell their equities. Having said that, so do a lot of professional advisors and investors. A lot of this money that's leaving portfolios is advised. So this is back to my point about it depends on the advisor. It depends on the advisory firm. We're all aware of firms, IFA firms, who encourage their clients to sell.
But this report is not based on those advisors. This report is based on the advisors who are doing these things and the value they add.
Okay.
I think the best way of illustrating that particular point is the Carl Richards sketch between you and the big mistake. I think that actually illustrates it.
Well, I think that covers another huge thing.
I'd put that on behavioural coaching.
Okay. Because we've talked in this conversation just today about, half a dozen different behavior or just mistakes, whether it's trying to buy a fund that can so-called guarantee you 15% a year or any number of other things that you're likely to blow yourself up financially. And I remember one of our earlier episodes and all these crazy funds that we've all seen over the years that people are piling into. So I've got to assume, therefore, for the purpose of this, that these are sort of advisors we're talking about, the people that will steer their clients clear of them.
Well, as opposed to some advisors put clients into avoidance. I call that scam avoidance. So benefit work with me is scam avoidance. Anything that lands on your desk, see on the internet, immediately call me. We're not going to get you involved in anything that's going to blow up. Okay, the next one we're moving on to is tax allowances and asset location. They're only given between 0 and 23 basis points for this. Tax allowances and asset location. Where's the best place to allocate your capital? I again think I add more per year than that.
I think
tax
so now.
Allowances and asset location.
This was written in 2020 when the allowances were far more generous in terms of capital gains tax. We've obviously got these changes to pensions now, so you'll need to do properly advised in-depth financial planning for clients, working out when's the best time to take money from a pension pot, if at all, and how much do you take out.
Sorry, Nick, that's the next one. That's called spending strategy. So this one is
it's to do with tax as well, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I mean, they overlap to a degree. I think they're both more important than Vanguard gave them credit for in June 2020, just because all the allowances have been either frozen or massively, capital gains tax allowance is down by 75%.
There's a lot of benefit in doing
slightly more. Yeah,
there's untold benefit in this because, for example, the standard fund threshold for pension funds here has just been increased to 2.8 million by 2029. And yet some advisors, this was coming because we were told it was coming, and some people were told, get out, your pension fund is now over 2 million. This is hundreds of thousands of euros of a difference here, just by telling someone who didn't need the money, just sit tight because the SFT is going to increase dramatically over the coming years. So I think this is the one that every DIY investor can say that they can do all of the other stuff we spoke about. Unless you're in this all day, every day, and you know the rules inside and out, and you're clued in and you know what's coming, you cannot say that you're going to be able to structure this yourself.
Sorry, Cole, are you specifically talking about tax allowances and asset location and spending strategies, or a bit of everything we just mentioned?
Kind of a bit of both, because I suppose these could go under tax strategies.
Yeah, tax.
Right?
You know what I mean? Tax optimization.
Yeah,
correct.
But also it does cross into the spending strategies as well, Andy, because when you might draw, what pots do you draw your money out of?
Yeah, where do you take the money out first?
Yeah. But there's a huge one for me, which is related to this under the title spending strategy. And you get all the technical bits and the tax optimization, right? But simply encouraging clients, giving them the confidence to spend, which kind of goes under the behavioral bit as well.
Yeah.
We've all got examples of clients that are wary of spending too much money and worried about running out of money. You can demonstrate, you can model it, do all these things, and you say, we could probably all share examples of clients that have just then gone on like the most incredible life journey experiences, adventures, travel, and or help their kids, grandkids, and all that sort of beautiful experience that happens by helping other people or enjoying amazing life-changing experiences with yourself. In my experience, a lot of people just won't do that because they've just got so much fear of running out of money. And therefore, this is a kind of behavioral and a mental thing. Put a price on, I've just had an incredible trip to a bucket list type place that I'll never forget. And I've got all the photographs.
Well, that's
and all
right.
The blah, blah, blah.
And you can't, can you? You can't.
Yeah. And the challenge, this is what I've got with all this stuff, is to try to quantify. And it's fair enough.
No, yeah, we understand
that. Done it, but
we understand the limitations of this type of stuff, yeah.
Okay, right. So what are we on? Spending strategy? Have we nailed that one?
Yeah, and then the final one is total return investing versus income investing. They put 0 basis points on that, but I think
that's put it in. It's 0.
I think that's an educational piece with clients because they do think.
No, I think you're right. I think they live off yield,
sometimes.
Natural yield off investment funds.
And for us to say no, it doesn't quite work like that. You've got all your money invested, you're going to take out a small amount there. It stays invested as a tiny yield. So that again is on the education around proper setup of investments from day one.
And I don't know how you put a value on that. It's the hassle factor, isn't it? You're saving clients from relying on natural yield, which is a pain in the bum. And it's a one-way street to migraine central if you're the advisor, because when that dividend doesn't come in at quite the amount they've expected, it's you.
It falls under the education, client education, specifically around investments. And obviously it's impossible to put a value on financial peace of mind, but again, I understand what they're trying to do with this survey.
Can I suggest that we just pick our top 3 from those ones and just allocate? I'm happy to go. I think the main 3 ones are suitable asset allocation, i.e. getting the clients as much into equities as can be done within the context of a meaningful bespoke financial plan. That'd be number 1. I'd say that's probably 1% at least.
Yes.
Behavioural coaching, I'll go with 150 bips. I'm fine with that. And then I would say tax allowances and asset allocation, probably another half, depending on the client, obviously,
1%
and how much
on
they've
that.
got and where they've got it, but at least 0.5% on that in today's environment where everyone is being taxed just for breaking wind. The more you can help people, the better.
Yeah, so I'd agree. So that all adds up to about 10%. So,
but it does to some people. This is the point, and again, the challenge with this is, I was looking up earlier on, any of you guys ever been to Le Manoir or Quatre Saisons out in Oxfordshire?
Yes,
Like,
Oxfordshire.
Outstanding place. Like, it's £1,000 for dinner for two. All right. And yet you can't book a table for that now. It is waiting list only, because there's a perception of value, because they're going to have an extraordinary experience. And this is the thing again, for some people, this is worth far more than that you've just said. And for some, it's not worth it at all. There are some people, and the thing is, they will never become our clients. There are some sort of retired accountants that loves, getting into the weeds on their Excel, their spreadsheets, and so on. But by and large, I agree entirely with what you said. It is getting them to the right asset allocation, but then keeping them there, which is the kind of behavioral stuff. Overlay that with some tax planning, income strategies, etc., and wrap all that up in just having this. Andy mentioned that a minute ago as a phrase we use, just strategic thinking partner. Bounce your thoughts off. I'm on the end of a phone or a WhatsApp, wherever you want to have a quick chat. So that all distills down to this magical thing called peace of mind. I've just got somebody taken care of. Someone's looking out for me. And that, for some people, is just worth anything you want to talk about.
Priceless, yeah.
Priceless. Exactly right.
And the permission thing's very important. I mean, they could have 10 friends, family members tell them they're blue in the face. You can go away, you can spend all the money. But until they sit down with a pro, they're still full of anxiety around spending too much. So only someone like us and our firms can answer those types of questions.
That's
good stuff.
Yeah, huge value.
Yeah, and just looking at the Advisor Alpha website that Vanguard have set up, a whole dedicated site on this subject. So if you're a younger advisor, newer advisor, and perhaps sometimes you're struggling to articulate your value proposition, I would immerse yourself in this, because some of it we just discussed. There's a bit nebulous. The rebalancing, that's a bit nebulous. Natural income over withdrawal income, that's a bit nebulous. But there's three things in there. Get the asset allocation right, and you're going to just you're going to give clients such a better life. I know that sounds base and based around money, but you're going to, after 30 years of being in the right asset allocation, it will be transformational for your clients. Be on their shoulder with the behavioural coaching when the clients want to ditch the plan, because Beth Rigby said that the world is ending on Sky News. And make sure that you manage their tax arrangements properly, and the spending strategy is aligned with their allowances and with their lifestyle needs. Just do those three things, and that'll cover whatever your fee is. For most reasonable people will be open-minded to it. Some won't be, and that's fine, because as Storyteller said, they'll be DIYers. And some people probably can do it by themselves, but it's a tiny slither of the population. Are we happy to say we've nailed that one, friends? Okay,
yeah, I think so. Just one last thing. The Michael Kitzes did a big breakdown of all these ones. The Vanguard, the Morningstar got one called, what's it called?
The Gap or something?
Something like that. And then some US firm called InvestNet or something, done one as well. And in typical Kitzes, and he's got one of his team as a PhD and all this stuff, but they've just unpacked it all. And it's as you can imagine, it's a huge kind of detailed analysis. And they arrive at the same thing. Yeah, they question some of it, and they clearly value other parts of it, but it's very individual. Because the other thing is, it does depend on the advisory firm. There are some firms it's probably not worth paying anything for. They're net detractors. We know that. We talked about it now and again. Yeah. In terms of they do no planning, there's very little tax planning, and their fees and costs are outrageous. So very specific to the right advisory firm. Otherwise, I think we've covered it off quite well. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, good stuff. Great stuff. Okay, so I think it's time for us to move on to the Trappist questions. And I can say I think it's the time, because I can see Posties at my front door. She's just hauled the bulging sack of Trappist questions up my drive. If you want to submit a question, there's a link in the pinned tweet on our @Advisor Podcast X channel, Twitter channel, whatever you want to call it. There's always a link in the so-called show notes where you can submit your questions. Questions now, we're up to June from this year. So we are getting through them, but we're a few months behind because we've had so many questions. And in fact, the two questions today are our 114th and 115th questions, respectively, that we have answered over the 59 episodes of TRAP to date. The first question, I don't know quite it reads like a hostage message. I'm trying to make sense of it. It's from a guy called Jamie428-74251 on Twitter. It's a real account. I checked it out. 3 words: send advice SJP. send money now, whatever. I don't know quite what. Anyway, Jamie, thanks for that. Really excellent, added value. Gavin Casey, who is a real person, is a real advisor. He's on Twitter as at Gavin Casey 1970. He's also on LinkedIn, and again, his links will be in the so-called show notes. Gavin asks, whilst agreeing furiously about the benefits of global equity exposure through passive investments, do you all follow the same portfolio construction process? And do you use the same components for that matter? Who wants to go first with this one?
I think the very quick answer is no. Fundamentally, our portfolios are very similar. So let's just take our 100% global equity portfolios. I think you and Carl use the same one fund via DFA. Me and Alan don't. My 100% global equity fund has 3 funds in it. Fund managers you know well. A very similar ethos. So, yes. Alan, how many funds do you have in your 100% global equity portfolio?
Don't know.
He doesn't even know. He doesn't even know. Of course he doesn't.
Probably
Weeds,
4.
Plumbing,
Detail. But we've got a few. It's not one fund. Yeah, I mean, ours is, talked about this before, is sort of fundamentally built from the ground up, aimed to optimize, and by modern standards, you might say it's a little bit more complex, a little bit more sophisticated, you might argue, but again, you could argue not as well than a one fund solution. But I know for sure the 4 of us share an identical philosophy. There's just some tweaks around the edges in terms of certain aspects of it, but you couldn't put a piece of paper between them, I would have thought.
Agreed. And they do exactly what we expect them to do. The last year's been superb. Obviously, we don't lead with performance, but
you know what is interesting.
We'll take it.
Yeah, but reflecting on that, we'd all built our own investment portfolios before we knew each other all those years ago. So you arrive at the same place independently, and that's kind of reassuring to think there's other people that have got the same beliefs and values as you've got.
I've known Nicholas for 16 years, believe it or not.
Yeah,
that's about right.
Yeah,
that is
he's
right.
still counting every day.
I taught him everything he knows about investment construction, portfolios and stuff.
Fine.
Anyway,
That's why you copied me, was it?
Andy, the ultra crepidarian Andy. He knows about everything, Andy. Can't be told anything. His name is Andrew Hart. Andrew Hart!
Have we answered that question for Mr. Casey, do we think?
Yeah, I think so.
It's not a lot to say, really, is there? Yeah, we're all...
it's one of those recurring questions, isn't it? I get the global equity thing, but. Yeah. I get you invest in global equities, but I've got further questions. No, I know I shouldn't be asking any more questions. I get global equities, but. It's just
Gavin,
choose the best portfolio that you're comfortable with and just stick with it and put as much golden coins in it as possible.
95% of the way there or even more. The rest is kind of just detail. There's different reasons that you might want to have one fund or build your own portfolios or outsource them or use an MPS. That's on an individual basis, but the philosophy remains identical. Nick,
stick with it, and get planning.
At the end of the day, if you were to analyse all of our portfolios, Gavin, you'd probably see that we're all pretty much invested in the same great companies of the world, and that's the bottom line. That's it's not the fund; it's what's the fund holding. And I think we're all holding pretty much the same basket of the great companies. Just doing it, just accessing those companies in slightly different ways, but that's just window dressing.
Agreed.
Okay, so we're at 82 minutes in. Shoot me. Let's move on to culture corner. Now, Wodge is dying of man flu, chest infection, whatever. So I'm going to tee you up, Wodge. I won't leave you hanging as I normally do on Culture Corner. Not as iconic as the IKEA Culture Corner, but...
Yeah.
This is a cracker. This is another home furnishing recommendation.
Expensive, but good.
This is a cracker. So we all have loads of photos on our phones and we don't print them out anymore and we don't put them up on our walls. Go on to mixtiles.com and you can get loads of your favorite photos from your phone. Do it on your phone and they arrive like this and they have a great little sticky thing that you can stick in your wall. So if you're as useless as I am with DIY, that you literally tear off a sticker.
I was going to say, have you worked out how to tear off the thing on the back?
Yeah, just about, Andy. It took a while, but I did.
But how does it work that it doesn't take off the paint when you take it off again? This is always
That's the magic.
I don't know.
Magic.
But
He hasn't tried that bit yet.
No, I have.
He's got to take them off first.
No, I have.
They're
And it's
by
amazing.
3M.
It doesn't,
It
doesn't take the paint off. And if this sticky bit then won't stick back on, you can email Mixtiles and they'll send you a few more of the sticky things. And you can create really cool walls of like loads and loads of these pictures. That's me and my dad. So you boys have been in my house. So you've seen the wall that I created. So I just actually bought a bunch more because obviously that they're probably done 3-4 years ago. So I'm updating the wall and adding to it. But it's really brilliant because everybody comments on it when they walk in and go, "Oh yeah, that's actually really cool." Because we all have so many pictures.
Yeah.
And I've actually printed some out for my office as well. Are
there different frames?
Yeah.
Don't encourage it.
For those who are listening to this and not viewing it, there's Carl's
here's
holding
another
this up.
one.
All right, that's a nicer one.
Doesn't have that's kind of a canvas kind of a job, and that is a frame. So you can.
He's being serious.
Yeah. No, it's bloody brilliant. And,
I think we're building homes now. We've got IKEA wardrobes.
Right.
We've got pictures on the wall.
What
What else did we have? Here's some other nonsense that Hart came up with or something.
IKEA bloody wardrobe.
Nick,
we had that.
if you hang any pictures in your house, Nick, they're called picture hanging strips by 3M. They're brilliant.
No, we've got those, fella. We've used those, but they do sometimes just the things just drop down.
And the paint comes off the wall with those ones. I had those ones as well. Andy.
Yeah,
these ones are the absolute boss.
They're better. Okay,
and
interesting.
they take a little bit of time. Yeah. If you want it for Christmas, you're going to have to go on. The minute you hear this, go on and get it done because they come from the States.
It's a good point you make in that we've all got literally thousands of photographs on our phones now. And what am I going to just print it off and do that? A bit of a hassle. You're going to take it to a place and get it framed and all that. So just send it.
Yeah.
What I do sometimes with Penny, we do these Google photo books where you can actually you can just pick like 80 photographs and then Google will send you a book, just a coffee table book of the photographs you've chosen, which is quite nice. It's just tactile. You can actually look at them, And
we could get a book of our trip to Paris last year. We went for the rugby. No?
Some pictures are unprintable.
Google might have an issue with something.
Dancing
Nick in McDonald's at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to work out this.
Don't talk about that.
Moving on.
Do not talk about the balcony.
What happens in Paris stays in Paris.
Exactly. Okay, I'm moving. Come on, guys. Let's move on. So, My Culture Corner is episode 76 of the Bogleheads podcast. They had the guy on called Meyer Statman, another one of these behavioural economists, behavioural finance guys from the sort of Kahneman, Tversky, Kahneman, who's the other guy? Thaler School. But it's just really engaging. Those guys can be quite dry sometimes and some of them very egotistical, but he is not. He's just a joy to listen to. I think he's 77. He's just an interesting, good guy to interview. Nice podcast. And interestingly, he talks about the FIRE movement. He's not one of these nutty academics. And he says, the thing about the FIRE thing is, I don't get it. I don't want to retire. I love what I do. I want to be doing this the rest of my life. It gives me purpose. So that's just, obviously the FIRE thing is, bam, this door comes down. You've got 6 decades to do whatever you want.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's not. It's embarrassing when people say that. Like,
FIRE,
you choose.
What does FIRE stand for? What does FIRE stand for?
Become financially independent.
What does FIRE stand for?
Then you decide to carry
Retire
on.
early.
It's RE.
Retire
early.
Retire early from... Anyway, it's... Yeah, I've got both camps I agree with. What's next, Andy?
It's me. It's a film recommendation, nothing to do with financial services. It's called Joy. It's on Netflix. Joy, the Birth of IVF. A couple of points into this.
Oh, my word.
This is one of those success stories, entrepreneurs, perseverance in the face of adversity. Everyone was against these scientists who were basically trying to do... Their audacious goal was to cure childlessness. A lot of, mothers in the 60s couldn't have babies for various reasons. Everyone was against them. The church or religious groups, the state, media, calling them Frankenstein. How dare they get involved, intervene with Mother Nature. All these scientists were sort of ostracized. They were doing amazing work. But the thing that was quite interesting, obviously, the people that were against them, obviously the religious groups, church, state, media, the people were for them were childless mothers. And if you were a betting person, you'd put, the weight on the childless mothers, just absolutely supporting this cause. It's an amazing film. I'm very close to this. I've had children via IVF, 3 rounds. It was brutal, but also magical that we could have babies. It's a great film. It's called Joy, The Birth of IVF on Netflix.
Right.
Very good.
Welcome to the Real Advisor podcast. The final one.
Yeah, we can hang your pictures on the wall and get some IVF treatment. But interesting. But just thinking about that just reminded me of something. Do any of you guys remember that company? Still going now, 23andMe. There's a few other versions of them.
I've done it, yeah.
So you've done it. Have you noticed? Yeah. I mean, they were another one of the kind of darlings of the stock market, and they launched, I think, on the NASDAQ. They were worth billions of it. Share price has fallen 98%. They're just going to go out of business. It's going to be taken private. And there was an article in the paper about a journalist who'd done all that, given all their DNA, all this stuff, and said, well, who now owns this? The company's now out of business. This stuff still exists. Where can this end up? It's a bit of a concern for some. It shows you. Hey.
Yeah,
anyway,
my DNA included.
Indeed. Right, sorry to bring it back to, financial advice and financial advisors. And, we can talk about IVF and DNA all day long. But I wanted to, as you know, I moved office a couple of months ago, and I've all the stuff that I've kept in my office, which has been there for 10 years. And I was unpacking and looking at books and things like that I had in the shelves over there. And I found this book, and it's, the best book, I think, certainly in the top 3 books I've ever read on entrepreneurship and having a business, and particularly for those who want to grow a company and recruit and hire people and build a proper business. Very well-known book called The E-Myth. The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. E stands for entrepreneur, in that most people never really start a business. Most people start a business and carry on doing the exact job they were doing before, and they have now got the worst job in the world because they're working for a lunatic, i.e., themselves.
Yeah, they own the job. Yeah,
they own the job. And so anyway, the E-Myth is a great book. And if anyone who's listening to this is on that journey, is either sort of started a business, plans to grow it, definitely get yourself a copy. It's been out for 20, 30 years at least. But there is, as a lot often is the case with some of these classic books, there's a few kind of specific to different industries. So there's a E-Myth for doctors, an E-Myth, and there's an E-Myth for financial advisors. So it's very specific to, obviously it's American, but same kind of rules and regulations apply. And as I say, I dug it out and had to flick through it again the other day, having read it in great detail, many years ago. And it's well worth for those who are on that journey, business building, trying to create something a little bit scaled, not necessarily for the solo advisors. Well worth getting The E-Myth for Financial Advisors by Michael Gerber. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So that's 91 minutes we won't get back. Okay, well, I think, Trap Pack, that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you, dear Trappers, for your precious time and input on the show. Please do leave a review for us. 6 out of 5 stars would be lovely. Do like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're now over the 1,000 subscribers mark, which still amazes me. Until the next time, Trap Pack, it's adios from me and the rest of the Trap Pack. Take care out there, and we'll see you on the other side in episode 60. Trap Live next year, May 14th. Put it in your diaries of choice. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.